Have you ever tried sanding your whole project by hand? Just a piece of sandpaper?
Oh, geez, Mr. Gasser. I love sanding, but this is getting really tiring. I'm so sweaty and there's so much sand, it reminds me of the beach. I wish there was an easier way.
Oh boy, did that look hard. Whew. Ever tried just using a file to smooth out your whole project and just realized things aren't going to plan?
Oh, geez, I thought the sanding was hard, but now I've been filing so long, I feel like I'm working an office job where I'm filing things like in an office. Mr. Gasser, I wish there was an easier way.
Well, if you've had these problems before, you have come to the right video. So stick around, we're going to learn about power sanding, and you might think you might not be strong enough like your world's strongest teacher, but good news, we're going to learn how you can get around that.
Here we have the belt and disc sander. This one on the left here, that kind of looks like a belt. That is the belt sander. Over here we have one that's a circle, kind of looks like a disc. Guess what? It's called the... No, you're wrong. It's the disc sander. Of course. The rules for these two sanders are very similar. So let's jump right in and talk about safety. The belt sander here is really good at doing detailed stuff. So after you're done with the scroll saw, for example, and you have little shapes like this, this is a great tool to use to get on all those little corners. When we're going to use this, the blood bubble is going to be 1 inch back. So you can see drawn on there, it's going to be keeping your fingers 1 inch back from the sandpaper. When we're using this also, we want to have 2 hands on the piece of wood at all times. So we're going to keep it right there with 2 hands. And lastly, we are always going to keep it flat on the table. So if you're using this, you might be tempted to do some of this stuff, or tilt it, or just go like this, or any of that. We're not going to do any of that. We're going to keep it flat on the table like so. And we're going to do our job just like that with 2 hands on there, moving around. If you do need to do an angle, that is possible, and we will talk about that in just a few minutes. So let's see what this looks like. When we turn this on, we want to be having our sleeves rolled back, hair, if that's hanging down in there, that can sometimes get stuck in the sandpaper there. All those loose clothing, safety goggles on, all those normal rules apply here. The first time you use this tool, Mr. Gasser will be watching you to check you off on it. So let's jump right in, and the on switch is right over here. You'll notice it's still moving. We gotta wait until that machine has stopped moving before walking away from it. The same goes for the disc sander we'll see in just a moment. So you'll notice a couple things there. I had my hand all the way back here. That's safe. I'm outside that 1 inch blood bubble. I'm good, I'm safe all the way around here. I kept it flat on the table. And I don't want to push really hard. You might be tempted to push harder so that it will sand faster. You will wear out the belt faster here, and that will end up breaking the belt, which is not good. It will scare you and not be safe either. And also, you'll end up burning your project. Friction happens, things heat up, and you're gonna end up burning your project if you're pushing too hard there. Lastly, you'll notice that I reached over here to turn it off. Sometimes I see students reach across the machine and they get their sleeves really close there, or even catching there in the sandpaper. Be careful, keep away from that even as you go to turn it off. Stay away from that sandpaper at all times. If you are looking to do some angled sanding, or if you are tempted to do something like this or like this, don't do that. We can change the angle of the table here. So this lever right here, we can go lefty-loosey on it, ooh, and you'll notice that whole thing comes loose. So you can put it at whatever angle you want. But notice that is gonna have a really big gap there. We don't like that big gap. Things will fall down there and it won't be safe. So we're going to put it at whatever you want, angle you want, but then we're gonna slide it up. So it's pretty close there, maybe like a 1/4 inch away or so will be pretty good. And then we'll tighten that lever down. Now, you can go and sand this like crazy again. And you'll see that has put an angle on there. And that can help you out sometimes. The issue now, though, is that this is at an angle, and when we're done with it, we want to put it back for the next person so they don't accidentally sand theirs at an angle. So before we do that, we need to get the square here, and we're going to loosen this lever. We're gonna get it up here, and again, we don't want that gap to be too big, so we're gonna put it like so, and we're gonna hold the square down with one hand here, and put it right up against the sandpaper there, and then we're going to tighten that down when there's no gaps here. No gaps, we're gonna be good. Double check it after you've tightened it down that there's no gaps here or here. Now we know that that is a right angle for the next person to use this machine. Next up, we have the disc sander here. The disc sander is great at rounding off corners like this, or doing somewhat small flat areas like you might see here. If your piece of wood is too long here, most flat areas are gonna be too long for this. If you are trying to take off a lot of wood like here, I'd recommend cutting this off with a saw before coming to the sander, because it's just going to be a lot of sanding to get all of that out of there. So cut it off so you're nice and close to the line here first, and then we will come over here to the sander. But once we're ready to go here, you might notice that right there on the saw it says do not use, don't use this. So this whole half of the circle you are not going to use. The reason being is it's going to be rotating in this direction, going that way. And if you touch your piece of wood over here, it's gonna lift it up, and it's gonna turn into a rocket ship and smack you in the face. Not gonna be safe. So we're always gonna be using this side, because this side of the circle is moving downwards, and it's not gonna be throwing anything in the air, because your piece of wood, just like on the belt sander over here, will always stay flat on the table. This will not go anywhere. It cannot get thrown out of your hand because it's getting pushed against the table. So always use this side, never use this side. When we're using this and doing a round shape like this, we can go like so, and we're gonna round this off. You'll see this in just a moment. We don't want to touch this side. We can come really close, but we don't want to touch. You'll see there's a little gap there, and that's gonna be good. Nice big swings there, like so. And we're gonna keep this flat on the table, as I've mentioned several times, and some of the same rules apply as the belt sander over here. We're gonna use 2 hands at all times. We're gonna roll up these sleeves and get those out of the way. Any loose clothing and stuff is also going to get out of the way. So let's see how this works. Turning it on, coming in, and I'm just gonna go nice, smooth motion. Stopping before I get too close there. And you can keep doing that until it's nice and round and you have the shape you want. Notice I did not go bzzz and keep it in one spot. I kept it moving. If you keep it in one spot there, you're gonna get a flat spot there and you're not gonna like that. The last thing to mention here is the blood bubble is the same as on the other belt sander here. We want to have 1 inch back from the sandpaper there as we go. Other than that, don't use that side and you're gonna be good to go. Don't let anything else drop down that little gap there either. If your wood is too small and you can't hold it with your fingers in a safe position, it is gonna be too small for this machine. As you can see, the belt and disc sanders all are hooked up to the dust collector, so we need to have the big giant dust collector vacuum running when we're using these machines.